Hello, you. Welcome to Shriekism. That's right, the next 2 weeks on the channel here is going to have a bit of a spooky flair, so everything we play is going to be a little bit spoopy. So get yourself under the covers, make sure your legs are tucked in so the monsters under the bed can't get you, and let's dive in to some Halloween fun. We start in Planet Coaster. It's been a long time since we've been here, but we are back, and I'm building a spooky haunted mansion ride that's going to go straight into Pinewood Hills. We're building outside of Pinewood Hills though, just because the frame rate's really dropping there now, and these bigger builds we're still unfortunately getting the advanced move crash occasionally. So we're going to be building outside and taking it in. Today we're starting off with the facade, the front of the building, the bit that you're going to see as a guest, but actually it's going to be housed in quite a large structure, just a basic like warehouse type structure. This is very heavily influenced by Duel at Alton Towers, which is a haunted house ride. It was originally called, I just think, The Haunted House, but they redid it a couple of years ago and they added the guns, laser guns to it. I personally am not a fan of laser gun rides, unless they're built for it. A couple of them are really good, like the Buzz Lightyear one at Hollywood Studios. That's really great. But usually when it's retrofitted to a ride, I'm very much in the same viewpoint regarding VR as well. When it's stuff's retrofitted, I think it turns out a little bit naff. So this is going to be a bit more traditional haunted house. The inside's going to be slightly less themed than the one at Alton Towers is, if you've been on that one. It's not going to quite have the same sort of budget, but the outside, I really wanted to have this sort of relatively grand facade, to be honest with you, that then goes on to a big warehouse at the back. I think it'll look quite a nice juxtaposition. So we're starting off using a little bit of everything, to be honest. A lot of spooky pieces that we never really used much of. Spooky and adventure DLCs, as much as I really liked them, we didn't actually use much of them because at the time we didn't really have much use for them, so we never did. But Spooky especially has got some really nice pieces, and it's all quite well scaled as well, actually. So we're going to be going in and using a lot of Spooky here. We're also using some of the World's Fair stuff as well, that lends itself to a haunted house kind of feel. Mostly the Bavarian build that came with the German shop. We use a few bits of that actually, and a few other little bits and bobs here and there as well. Like I say, it's based on the Alton Towers one, and the big thing about it really, and the one thing I really like about it, is it doesn't necessarily look like a proper haunted house. It just looks like an old, slightly scary house. Obviously when you go inside, you know, the whole thing is quite scary, and the actual ride itself, it doesn't really feel like you're in a house. It's just kind of different scary scenes and different scary spaces. There isn't much of a rhyme or reason to it. Just something I quite like about it. It makes it feel a bit more budget, a bit more naff, which again is probably something we'll carry on. But the outside of it actually looks like quite a nice house that's just maybe just been left to rack and ruin a little bit. Here's some of the Bavarian pieces going in here. So I had a lot of fun building this actually. It took me a little bit longer than usual, and I think that's just because I've had a bit of time away from the game, which is something I wanted to talk about, because I get a lot of people ask about Planet Coaster. It is still one of my favourite games of all time. I adore building in it when I'm in the mood, and that's really the key thing, is that sometimes it's really difficult to make yourself be creative. And also at the moment, my home life change a little bit. Nicola, my wife, has gone back to work now after being off for a year or so with maternity for our son. So before that, most daytimes I could actually just spend playing the game for a little bit if she was taking the baby out or whatever. So obviously that's now changed because she works Monday to Friday. So most weekdays now I'm at home as a sort of stay-at-home dad, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm having the best time with him. It's so much fun being a stay-at-home daddy. It's fantastic. But it does mean that I don't get that much time to play video games anymore, at the moment at least, because I am still working a full-time job at the weekends as well. So I'm having to sort of do my recording time on the occasional times where the baby is taken out by friends or by grandparents, or evenings once he's gone to bed, and that's fine for Let's Plays. I can quite easily sit down and play a 20-minute, 30-minute episode of Tropico or Megaquarium or whatever, and enjoy it and make a good video, I think. But when it comes to something like Planet Coaster, where you really need to sit down and play for a couple of hours, it's so hard to sort of turn on the creative juice and start playing. So I've decided to kind of set myself a task as part of Shriekism, as part of our Halloween feature over on the channel for the next 2 weeks, and that is just to get this ride done. And I think because it's relatively small scale compared to just the idea of working in Pinewood in general, I'm actually able to sort of focus myself a little bit, and also being able to use reference images and have a very sort of specific design in my head for what I'm going to do, which I've especially got here with the facade. It means I can really sort of come in and actually make stuff happen. So that's good. As for in the future, we're just going to go back to once a week Pinewood Hills videos, and hopefully really sort of crack on with those now, pushing into Christmas. If I don't want to make this video just a big old plug, but if you would like to see more of this sort of content, the best way to do it, if you're able to, is pledge on Patreon. We have a Patreon page that does pretty well. We've got about 70 people on there who support. They get their names at the end of the video and little things like that. But most importantly, that's what's going to really help me push towards being able to drop more shifts at work and really turn this into a full-time living, which seems doable, you know, which is crazy to think. Like a year ago, it was still just a complete hobby, whereas now it does actually earn me a bit of an income. It's still nowhere near enough to live on, but it is starting to get to a point now where I could genuinely see this being a full-time career. And then obviously my work demographic then will completely shift. You know, it becomes a full-time job, and we're able to really spend a lot of time on videos and really make them as best as they can be. So even though we'll still be doing lots of Let's Plays, because I do enjoy doing Let's Plays and I do enjoy playing new games and stuff like that, it does mean we'll be able to focus a little bit on producing this sort of long-form content with things like Planet Coaster, maybe even City Skylines. We'll have another go at that, because that's another one that's a mega time sink. Here, the entrance of the building, we'll talk a little bit about the build now, has these stairs up either side. One side is the queue, the other side is just sort of closed off, and it's purely there for symmetry, I imagine. It also has a very slight outpost here that I've actually made a little bit larger. One, because of the building restrictions of the grid, but also I think it'd be quite nice to have some sort of statue there, although I don't know what yet. I think it would be quite nice to have sort of like a center point there, a little bit of a focal point. The other thing I like about it is that you have these beautiful sort of old wood and old stone fences, but actually when you get to it, there's just a metal fence saying you can't go this way, and I quite like that sort of slight jankiness. So that's something else we've done there. The new world sets, they're really nice. Some of them are a little bit more full than others. I've done a full video on them, by the way, so if you haven't checked that out already, I'll try and remember to put a link somewhere for it. But most of them have these windows built in that have glass, and they're see-through, and they're really good. And one of the things you can do with them, like here, is actually add some sort of vignettes behind them, add them some little scenes behind them. So there we're adding just one of the ghouls that come with the spooky pat, not on an animatronic or anything, just standing there still with a little bit of a light. It's just the kind of thing that you might look up and notice every now and again and get yourself a little bit of a fright. And the in-game ones, the Alton Towers ones, sorry, don't really have anything like that. Their windows are all just sort of covered up. But I thought, you know what, we're using these new Bavarian pieces that almost look a little Tudor in style, which is kind of what we're going for with this build. And I think they just work really well, and it's nice to be able to add some lights in there. And we'll probably go in and maybe add a couple of pumpkins or something else as we do a bit of a detailing pass later on. The video just kind of ends, unfortunately, when I ran out of time, so I didn't really get quite as much done as I wanted to. Obviously, a lot of most of the facade is done, to be honest. This is pretty much how small it is in Alton Towers. It just kind of looks like you're walking into a house. The actual warehouse is covered with trees and fencing and things like that, so obviously we won't be able to do those until it's actually in place in Pinewood. So that's going to be next episode. We'll place it down into Pinewood, and we'll work on the queue, the outside queue, and placing it down actually, and figuring out where it's going to go, and working out some trees around it and stuff. Really sort of start tying it into the area. One nice thing about the one at Alton Towers is you exit through a gift shop, which is all spooky themed as well, and there's also an ice cream stall outside that again is all sort of built in the spooky style, and there's some gates in the area. It's basically got its own little plaza, which is something I really would like to try and replicate. So next episode we're going to be working on that. We're going to do the plaza, and we're going to do the outdoor queue area. The one after that will be interior queue and station, and then the actual ride itself to finish off with, and we'll cap it all off. So hopefully going to be aiming for about 4 or 5 Planet Coaster episodes over the next 2 weeks, where we build this ride out as part of Shriekism. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have, you can give us a like. It really does help out the channel. And if you're new here and you'd like to see lots more creative gaming for grown-ups, don't forget to click subscribe. Any thoughts, queries or suggestions, you can pop them down in the comments. And if you fancy a chat, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at John T. Sparrow. If you'd like to join in with the Geekism community, you can do so over on our Geekism Discord server. You'll find the link for that in the description. And thank you very much to all of our patrons who help support the channel through their pledges at patreon.com/geekism. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.